Thank you all for your wonderful presentations. I think we're going to talk for about an hour here and maybe 45 minutes and then open it up for questions. Mr. Lee and Mr. Choi, both of you talked about a Korea that would eventually not be dominated by Apple or Google, but by its own platform, because its infrastructure is so much more superior than any place else in the world. What has gotten in the way up until now of Korea accomplishing this? It has had broadband. It has had broadband in wired and wireless form for a very, very long time. What needs to change? Mr. Choi?
One needs to be changed, assuming that the network is Korea's main foundation for big success. That's your question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As we assume, a lot more mobile traffic is growing. Then the current 3G network and just a bit of Wi-Fi network is not good enough to accept all those traffics. So we have to have a whole new set of network that can handle mobile traffics. So in this sense, what KT is considering is 3W networks. One is wideband CDMA, the other one is Wi-Fi, and the third one is WiMAX. And what we are saying is what we call ABC, always best connected services. When you are in Wi-Fi zone, you are automatically connected to Wi-Fi. And then, if you are out of the Wi-Fi zone, if you are in WiMAX zone, that will be connected to the WiMAX. Then at the rural areas, when Wi-Fi and WiMAX is not available, we are going to connect our mobile traffic through 3Gs. So the first stage is a 3W network with a ABC, always best connected. That's our first stage. And the next stage is, at the home, we may need a lot more traffics. So when you want to see your TVs, at higher resolution with wireless, in that sense, we need the next version of technologies. And we are preparing such a kind of next version of technology in-house. I don't know whether how successful it will be, but we are waiting for it.
All right. Mr. Lee, so what's been getting in the way up until now?
The first thing, I didn't say that we're going to win over Apple or Google. I said now it's Apple and Google. We have other things to do.
Okay.
Basically, we have other things to do, which is, as I said, we can use our infrastructure and talent for more diverse areas, for diverse industries and more business-oriented and productivity and value creation things. We have not concentrating on that area as much as we have been on games, phones, and etc., videos, etc. I'm not saying that's bad, but we need to do that as much. And we thought we are number one, but we will never be number one. We were number one on infrastructure. We only in number infrastructure. So it's not that we are wrong. It's that we did that, and it's a stage where now we need to get into another area and we excel. So what has been wrong? I don't think it's not the case of wrong or not, and it's stage of growing from one area to the other. Now we once we set the direction, we have this kind of application, we'll do this. Since Korea has excellent test bed means not only the infrastructure, but also the people, the market, the response from the people, the trial of new technology in adopting the new technology and giving the feedback. Now, that kind of things are very good test bed than any other countries. So in this market, the education, healthcare, shopping, financing, in all areas, I think we can come up with many good applications, and that can be next time be really made global. There are things to do, but
I understand.
Different kinds.
No, I understand. So in other words, we've been Korea has been spending too much time playing video games, and not enough time spending it on healthcare. By the way, I concur. The United States is in the same problem. If we had as much bandwidth as Korea has here, we would probably use it to play video games instead of doing things that are more productive. I want to focus a little bit on design and industrial design here. Clearly, there is something about all the new tablets, all the new smartphones that is changing the way we do things in the world. And I wanted to ask Mr. Wozniak to talk a little bit about what it is about the design of these new devices that is qualitatively different than the design of, say, laptops and PCs, and that's enabling all of this to start happening.
Actually, the new devices, the particularly smartphones and iPads, really follow the same design principles at Apple as the PCs do, whether they're laptops or towers. And it's largely driven by a creative design point of view of form equals function. And that means that the architect who designs the overall architecture of a product is also very familiar with being the builder of putting the components together, knowing what kind of components are available, how they can be structured, bent. In technology, all our lives, it's almost always been to make products a little smaller, a little smaller, a little smaller. And as I grew up, generally the best consumer electronic products were Sony's. And Sony, compared to Panasonic or Sanyo, they were always a little bit smaller, a little sleeker, a little more thought went into making them look attractive to the eye. The first impression that grabs your eye should be one of, wow, I want that, whatever it is, even if I don't know what it is. And that's pretty much the drive behind of Apple's products. It's pretty much this world of consumer electronics is less an electrical engineering problem and more industrial design. And it's more actual operations of how do you manufacture things. Take, for example, even the small little chips we have in our phones, little micro SD card. And inside of that, it's 4 chips on top of each other, sliced with a laser to be so thin you don't even know it. It's like these kind of technologies are kind of amazing if you go back in time to what preceded them. So Apple puts, obviously a lot of effort into that. Also, a lot of styling, and I don't fault a lot of Asian companies in this area either, that there should not be too many marks that take attention of your eye and your brain to perceive certain things, shapes, squares, colors, labels, lots of buttons. Oh, that's horrible. Pretty much, my design philosophies were that a lot of German products and European products were made to last a long time. A beautiful, well thought out shape, form, positions for controls, and it wasn't too bothersome to the eye. But a lot of Asian products, largely Japanese products, just had messes of buttons and labels everywhere, and it was confusing, it was intimidating, it didn't feel good. It was a difference in culture. I saw that over and over, and Apple is very much in the side of styling things to have very few noticeable deviations. The buttons can be almost difficult to find. Style of some of our recent products is, you'd almost think that if somebody said, how can I make a product less expensive? This is the way I always thought. What could I leave out to actually implement it cheaper? Well, if you had no buttons at all, that's great. What if I built a computer that all I do is talk to it, and it does all my work? I never have to type or anything. We aren't quite there with these smartphones, but it's pretty much, you look at one flat sheet of glass and you turn it on with one button, and you touch things and move them around, and it's pretty much a lot less costly than actually building in keys or a keyboard in some cases. So sometimes what is a better design can actually cost less, but it takes a lot of work, thinking out, developing new technologies. Most of the technologies that influence our lives and make them better, such as very small computers called smartphones, they really start out at the level of chemistry and physics, and making the semiconductors, making them better, smaller, use less power, all of that, understanding the atomic structures of silicon and the formulas, for making it work, coming up with a new semiconductor technology. These are the things that really, years later, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, turns into a product that can actually change our lives quite a bit. So, and Korea certainly has companies that are well on that track. On the topic of, having the great bandwidth of this country, that's a tool. A bandwidth is an enabler. It's something that makes things possible. And my attitude is if you have it and you're leading the world, you can sort of leave it alone for a while and not say, we've got to have more bandwidth, we've got to work on it some more, we've got to work on it some more. Now you have the tool to go back and think, what would people want to do with it? When everyone in a country has high bandwidth, how can they use it among themselves? Probably some social sharing, of video makes the most sense to me. Start thinking of, some new applications or even devices totally organized around a social use of that sort of bandwidth. That would be my suggestion. And don't look at products that exist today. Don't look at things that are being done today. Just pretend that if this existed, a lot of people might use it, even if it seems like it's just fun and you can't justify it in productivity terms.
One of the questions that has the iPad success has been really, really interesting to me because it is a form factor that has been tried many, many times over the years and always failed. It always wound up being not too big to be a phone and too small and not functional enough to be a laptop. This is what happened to the Newton, and it's what happened to the tablet PCs that Microsoft was pushing in the early part of this decade, and yet all of a sudden the iPad now has caught on. What has changed, either from a design or technology point of view, that has actually created a market in between the phone and the PC that didn't previously exist?
Well, except that e-paper made the Kindle possible. The Kindle was successful, not a full-blown computer, but a niche market. But so the form factor obviously wasn't a deterrent in all cases. It's just that if you can make a product for that size for $300 and you can make a full keyboard laptop with a lot more abilities for $400, that has a much larger hard disk for storing more of your music, more of your videos, more of your photographs and important things, well, it's difficult to compete. It's difficult to tell people, wow, you can now go down to a smaller device, but you're going to give up a lot. The iPad, for example, is designed sort of like a phone. You don't even have a print button in any of the applications of the iPad. So it's not like a full computer on its own. It's like a satellite to a computer. The iPod was always a satellite to your computer. The computer stored your music, bought your music. I mean, thankfully, Apple created and owned the store that sells the music. along with the processing systems, along with the operating system, along with the application iTunes, along with your iPod, and they all work together. So one little step got you the music everywhere. So it's like, so these things were satellites, and the iPad was also designed basically as an iPhone. So it's sort of like a satellite. You attach it to your computer, and it downloads your data, things like photographs or music if you want on it. And it wasn't real, so it was a whole different thinking of a device that you normally would have thought, if I'm going to build this particular device, the iPad, why don't I make it a full computer? Why do I leave some things out? And maybe that's, from a marketing point of view, that's the advantage.
I want to change things a little bit, move things a little bit. One of the advantages that you all have had here has been that you have all this bandwidth, but you've also moved judiciously to introduce products like tablets and smartphones, and so you've had a chance to see the way the rest of the world has taken up these devices and used them. And I was hoping to ask Mr. Choi, Mr. Lee, sort of what have you learned from watching the way the iPhone and Android phones have been introduced in other parts of the world that is helping you with what you're doing right now?
Oh, there is always pros and cons, okay? Having something in advance.
Well, I mean,
Later.
there are a lot of cons to look at from the way we've done it. Okay. So clearly, you guys will figure out a way to do it better.
Okay, when we starting to provide iPhones in Korea, we know what kind of services customer want. What is the key enablement we have to make? What kind of network requirement we know? So we get ready to the services easily, better than the other service providers. Okay, so we know the phenomenon and what is the requirement, what is the bottleneck, what is the barriers. So when you provide this iPhone 4G or iPad in Korea, okay, we can easily well prepared for the services, so we can have a better success. But that's a good side. But the other side of the coin is, okay, if we are the first provider of the iPhone or iPad in the world, then the Korean companies or the Korean software developers or the Korean app developers can be ahead of the other countries' developers. Okay, so there is always pros and cons and both sides of coins.
Right. Mr. Lee, do you want to take a crack at that?
What have we learned?
Yes. What?
We learned that USA is too strong. It's too strong.
We've learned that.
Yeah, and
we've learned that AT&T is not so good.
USA is strong, and you lead the ideas, you lead the press, and we follow. SK Telecom and Korea thought we developed many devices. Actually, we developed smartphones like 5 years ago. We introduced many. We did it in Korea, smaller scale, not very successful. And now Apple and Android are doing it in a better scale, bigger scale, standardized the world. It's de facto. It's not really standard. It's a de facto. USA can make the de facto standard. You use English, and all the press will support USA. So we found out it's a difficult game for us. It's a difficult game for us. But what we learned is that next time we'll do better. The first is that the openness. We should have opened earlier. We'll open. We are now open. And we will open our resources and technology for our applications. As I said, through platform, we'll open our location, billing, messaging, user profile, etc., step by step. We need to build on that so that not only the openness of handset, but also the openness of infrastructure will provide better environment for Korean IT industry. So we'll do open. That's what I learned, number one. Number two, we need global scale. How to create global scale for us? Even if we go first, Apple or American firms look at what they have done and they create better product which is becoming standard, and we have different kind of same product which is out of mode. So how we can handle this problem? That's our big task. And I think through our testbed approach, we can try and introducing early and make sure that our openness become worldwide standard. We can provide environment such that our application developers and our software industry can use Korean infrastructure to build a worldwide global product. Next time, we will try to do that.
You talked a little bit about Apple and Google and their impact here. Clearly they've injected a new dynamic into the Korean telecom market. Prices for handset and services have fallen. How much more competition is there going to be, and how is that going to play out, do you think, Mr. Lee?
Sorry.
So, Apple introduced the iPhone. It was cheaper. There's more price competition for services. How is that competition dynamic going to play out over the course of the next 3 years? Is it going to get to the point where it becomes hard for the telecom companies to offer their services profitably because of the competition?
Because of competition.
Sure.
We are open. We're open. Which means we'll develop our applications, but we'll open our resources so that many other applications can build on top of our infrastructure, so that it's open competition. That way, I think the Korea can actually. I think that is there any other way?
I don't know. Mr. Choi, why don't you go at it?
Okay, your question is introduction of iPhone and the introduction of Android phone competing each other. So how it changes those kind of price structures. So
Please.
that's the question you have. Okay. I think it's not an issue of competition of technology or OSs. I think the main issue is market share issues. Okay. This is the beginning of smartphone era. Okay. So who take the first market share, big market share, will be the winner. So a lot of so telcos wanted to get a bigger market share with a bigger, so with a better terminals. Mm-hmm. So the price war is like this. Okay, if you have a better terminal, people willing to pay for it. Okay, then you don't need to worry about those kind of your terminal's price. But unless you have a better terminals, then the only way you can win against the better terminal is making your terminal's price down. Okay, so because of the introduction of the iPhones in Korea, because currently it's a better device, Okay, it makes the other Android phones price goes down. Okay, so iPhone can have a higher price in these days as long as it has better devices or better terminal to the customer. But when it loses that kind of status, then there will be just a kind of market share gains with the pricing. So for the time being, I think iPhone may be better devices compared to Android. But sooner or later, I don't know how later it is, okay, Android device will come up to the standard of iPhones. Okay, so at this moment, okay, iPhone's price is not going down, by the way, but iPhone is making the other terminals price down. But sooner or later, when Android terminal is very good, then I can expect that the iPhone's price will go down too. That's my expectation.
Just let me add something. I thought the question was competing between SK Telecom's services and the services that our software industry is creating. In that sense, we are not competing. We'll open our resources and we'll be partners with the application developers in the world, in Korea particularly. That's what I meant by we open and we are becoming the partners. When you say if the question becomes Apple, Google, SK Telecom thing, I think it's a different story. I think it's not a matter of the question is who is competing with whom. We are the operator. iPhone, Apple is a device manufacturer, and Google is the operating system and the platform service provider. So each has its own role, and it's not a competitive relationship. I think it's somehow we'll come up with working all with them, beneficial for each, and I think that's the very natural way. And surely you can create good partners with all players in the ecosystems. Is that answer?
Sure.
Okay.
I imagine that you guys are going to offer the iPhone at some point in the future. Is that a good assumption?
To us?
Yes.
Sure. I think Apple is reasonable enough. If they don't, they are good business people. It's reasonable company we are operator, they are device manufacturers, so naturally, we'll be partner. But at certain point, there are specifics we need to handle, and we are working on it. So we are still, I take some time. By the way, the handphone thing is almost like fashion. I think it's as much as functionality, but also it's as much as fashion. And if it becomes fashion, the most important thing is the speed. Speed and trial, getting the feedback and getting another product on the market. In that sense, the speed of the development and introduction of a new product, I think the Koreans can really excel than any other company in the world. In that sense, Korea can be at advantage in this game.
My view a little bit on those issues is, okay, before the smartphone, terminal was just a terminal. But after smartphone or iPhones, terminal is not just terminal. Terminal with the ecosystem provided the value. Okay, so how good ecosystems, how good application you have is additional value people pay more attention to these days. So not just terminal, okay, you cannot compare. Okay, terminal and related ecosystem is the real value, I think.
Yeah. A lot of what we're talking about here reminds me of some of the stuff that, a lot of the debates that we had 30 years ago when Steve Wozniak invented the PC. And I was hoping to ask him what the similarities and differences he saw between what's going on now and what was going on then. And how do you think it's going to evolve?
Sure. It's odd. We've always treated Apple as a hardware company, even though it's software that really made the difference between our products and competing products, the PCs. You know, when we first came out, there was Microsoft had an operating system, and they said, well, why don't we let our operating system work with everybody who wants to manufacture hardware? They can compete with each other. Many devices can use the same platform. And at Apple, we felt very strongly that was why our product was superior, because we kept control of both the hardware, the software, the operating system, some key applications, and now much more of the whole world. And by having control over it, we could guarantee a better user experience. Things worked easily. They worked together well, where there were constant problems and headaches with the PC platform. So those who stayed with Apple all over the years in the countries that we're in pretty much wound up being lovers of the technology and the product. Now we see with the Android phone system, which was brought to Google by a very good friend of mine, the Android phone system has taken the same approach as Microsoft. Seeing, Microsoft had this huge income and huge revenues from being the major portion of the world market. They had a much greater market share than Apple with its, building its closed but works well and very well received product. So the Android system is being put out to anybody who wants to make the hardware, go ahead and make it. And sort of, I say worse than that, the Android system is free. It's not like they're licensing it or selling it like Microsoft sold its operating system. It's like they're giving it out, trying to, a very desperate attempt to, basically have majority of the market share. Will the end products be viewed the same? Obviously today, I love Korea. I really am a fan of Korea. And I think Koreans are very smart people. And I think that they're going to knowledgeably choose the iPhone, and the iPhone will be the prominent smartphone here. But the Android platform could come up and equal the iPhone someday in terms of quality of applications, quality of reliance of the phone itself, and user interface. Does it really seem and operate in pleasing fashion? They're way behind. The problem is when you build an operating system for many different hardware platforms, you all of a sudden become captive to them all. You can't make sudden changes, big improvements, make things work better if it's going to negatively influence a lot of your customers that are basically the companies building those phones, and some of them might be Korean. So they're kind of in the same trap that Microsoft was. The phone makers themselves are in a worse trap. With PCs, they always had Microsoft as a chokehold. They could imagine a very simple, better world that involved several pieces of the formula, including the operating system, but they didn't own. Hewlett-Packard, for example, didn't own the operating system. So they couldn't make the user experience as good as Apple could with its music store. And they'd have to go through Microsoft, and it was a very difficult limiting factor. And I think that Android phone from Google is in the same situation now and will dwindle off and never be considered as good. And as we heard, it'll be selling for a lower price, in my mind, hopefully forever. But I'm not going to say that it can't. Some miracle could happen, and some incredible applications that become the new thing that everyone has to have. Applications, of course, can be written for different jurisdictions. So one of the things I would hope is that there's some encouragement, I don't know how it's done here in Korea, between the carriers might encourage certain applications that lead to greater uses of their services.
Although as you were talking about that, one of the things I was thinking was that, it turned out okay for Microsoft. their whole approach to doing business during the 1980s and 1990s seemed to have won them a fair amount of customers and a lot of money. And for a while, focusing on making a closed system, the way Apple had, didn't work out so well. So what's different this time? Why won't history repeat itself? Why won't Android eventually, through its varied distribution of handsets, eventually put the iPhone in a box?
We're talking technology, and some of us love great technology and believe in it. What's more important? Is it market share, or is it the quality of your product? And is it how people love and admire users of your product, say good things about it, or they just sort of use it because they have to, their company bought it? Market share isn't necessarily the only measure, and Google is certainly after market share. It's worked out very well for them. They had the huge market share of the search engine, and that led to huge revenues from advertising. So that's got to be their platform, but it's not like they're trying. That doesn't say they're trying to go out and make the best product. They're not trying to make a lousy product. They're trying to make a very, very good one. I'm just saying they're hampered, except in a few cases maybe where they decide to make their own hardware as well, but they're still limited how much they can alter an operating system that's in use by 30 other companies.
Mr. Lee, you sound like you had something to add.
I wonder how long Korea need to talk about Apple and Google all the time. I wish we can overcome this. Korea is a very, very good follower. Given the target, we can catch that. The problem we are having is when there is no target. When it becomes the leader, where shall it go? Which product we should develop? How to create the market and lead the world? Let the world follow us. That's very different game. This game is a follow game. For the follow game, we can do very well. We'll be surprised how good we will be. In the past, whatever product you have, we can follow and catch them. I think in all industry we are doing it, we'll do it. So I think that this time it will be a different game. The Koreans, at this stage, whatever we can catch. So we are not so much concerned about catching a specific target. I think we'll do it in a very short time. The world will be surprised. The other task we need to do is how to be the leader. That's what I'm talking about. How to be the leader. We thought we are the leader, and we tried a little bit, and somehow very strong USA came back, and we are behind now. Now this time, how to be the leader in the ICT industry, not only in infrastructure, but also in creating applications for diverse areas. Apple is talking about very good product for certain customers who like this kind of good design, good interface, good something. But that's only a small market. That's only a small market. There are huge other market for Korean ICT industry. That's what I am saying, and we need to be the leader in that area. That's what we are saying about IP, productive enhancement, and Telco 2.0, the long tail applications for diverse specified industries. Education, with so much abundant ICT technology, how to change education, and healthcare, how we can change healthcare, the environment, the building areas. There are so many things we can do, and in this area, I think we can be the leader. And this time it will be easier because the consumer thing, the USA still lead ideas in the press. But in industry areas, in diverse industry areas, it's measured by the efficiency, productivity, and the value it creates. And I think we can do that. And with SK Telecom providing our infrastructure and platform, and with all industries advancing and becoming the leading position, if ICT industry work on that area, I think we can be the leader in new area, and this time we'll do better and be the world leader.
What are the kinds of things that you're thinking about in healthcare, in education? I don't know what the healthcare system here is like and what it needs and how it can benefit from technology and bandwidth or education. But I'm sure what kinds of devices and services would be, can you think of, are the things that you're talking about?
So many. There are so many things. Let's say education or healthcare.
Do education.
Education first. Let's say English education. Okay, English education. We need to learn English, whatever, for next 50 years, I guess. We need to learn English, and all the world people, the people in the world need to learn English. How to help them to learn English? Let's make it easier one, the mathematics. Mathematics. I'll do mathematics first. People need to learn mathematics. Learning mathematics enables them to select diverse jobs. If they cannot learn mathematics, they are limited to certain jobs. So help them learn mathematics is very important, and that there is a need in the whole world to learn mathematics. But what we observe is that somehow they lose interest in mathematics because their teacher is not good, they are not motivated enough, they don't see the skills in mathematics will relate their future career. Even if they have talent, somehow they don't learn mathematics, then they are excluded from this kind of job. So helping them to learn mathematics easier, efficiently, is a very good thing, and with ICT technology we can do. The first thing we are working on is, this is on one case of IP project we are working on. Give them from 6 to 12, which means high school, middle school students, give them a problem, mathematical problem, and have them solve and analyze them and see what he knows and what he's lacking. In mathematics, if you do not know certain things, you cannot progress. So they just give up. So by diagnosing their problem very, very accurately and recommend them what to learn very accurately. It's not just you need to learn mathematics or calculus. It's more on like factorial of something, more specifics. And help them diagnosing and recommend them. Then either help them to learn mathematics and correct their deficiencies more easily. That kind of system if we build, and that platform can be used for all the teachers in the world. We help every teacher becoming the best teacher, and that helps them learn mathematics far easier. That's kind of things we can do with a personalized backup for each student with the knowledge of what's the progress he's making, what's the problem, and how to motivate him with what. Each person has different tendencies, so motivating each student has a different means, and we'll provide all this platform for the teacher, mathematics teacher of the world. That's kind of thing, ICT can do on math education, and we can elaborate on etc. etc.
I'm thinking that you all have been very patient.Maybe what we ought to do is let you guys participate a little bit. Are there mics around?
Fred, okay, before we get into the questions, okay, I have a little different opinion from Steve.
Okay.
Yeah. So your question was, is history going to repeat or not? If so, if repeat, Okay, how? That's your question, okay? Okay, my question is, the history is going to repeat, but a little different way. The reason I'm saying is, I do agree with what Steve mentioned almost, but the difference between his opinion and my opinion is, the technology is going to be cheaper, and putting technology into a device and getting cheaper. Okay. As you know, Microsoft's Windows is actually more expensive than Apple's OS. However, because it's getting cheaper, people doesn't feel the difference between expensive one and the cheap one. So as the technology is going to evolve and evolve, currently there is a gap between Apple's iPhone versus Android phone. But eventually, Android phone will be more complex to meet the standard. But the difference at the cost will be almost the same. So eventually, if we stay this way, the history will repeat. But a little difference is, about 30 years ago, Apple has wonderful ideas and very good devices, but not that much well prepared. But these days, Apple is very well prepared compared to 30 years ago. They have very wonderful ecosystems. Okay, they set up, in a sense, semi-open apps appliance. Okay, so 30 years ago, it was just a game of the Microsoft big group versus only single Apple. But this time, Apple, very well prepared Apple and their ecosystems, and against Android and Google, not very much well prepared yet. So it will take longer. But eventually, okay, something like a few years later, the Android will catch up. So unless Apple do something else to make a... Yeah.
I would predict, well, first of all, 30 years ago, we started out with the Apple II and it took over the world. Then as we moved to the Macintosh, we were probably too early. Sometimes you hurt yourself, sometimes you hurt the world when your product's too early and it was too expensive. And so even though the company was growing and the Apple II was building in huge revenues, bringing in huge revenues for the company, the Macintosh had a lot of trouble getting started. Only in a few markets did it really take off well. And as a result, after some future years when that became the style of computers, and Microsoft moved to Windows, and they moved to a Windows version that was very much like the Macintosh, eventually, we were higher priced. We're higher priced because we needed more resources like memory for our kind of computer earlier than the PCs, so we had a very small market share. That's not the case at all with these current products, smartphones and iPads. I mean, we're starting off as the first mover and the world leader, and we're not leaving any of the world behind, and we aren't really being affected much. Our products are not that much more expensive to build, and I don't think we're going to give up the lion's share of the market share the same as before. I don't think it'll happen. Regardless, keep the same values as always, and our products are just going to be the finest in the world. And so and it's just, there's something special about it. We're so passionate, and I say we love our computers, we love our iPhones, whatever. You run to somebody that has the same product, the Apple product, and you instantly look at each other and you have a knowledge and an understanding that you're very much alike. And part of the reason we were passionate was there were times when we were afraid that we were such a tiny market share. We were going to be eaten up. We were going to go away. We were going to go out of business. And that made us fight stronger for what we knew was a better platform and a better machine, the way we worked, the way humans worked, the way humans thought. And also, the smaller the market share got, they said our computer share, Macintosh, was 8%, and then it dropped to 7 or 6. And every time it got smaller, I just said, well, now I'm that much more special. I mean, you have you're a special person when you choose a technology because it's the right best one. But that's really not what's happening with the iPhone. It's hard to find anyone in the world. People will say, I can do everything you do on an iPhone. I can do it on my Android. And that's true. And I've used an Android as my personal phone quite a bit, and I like quite a bit of the functionality and some things it even does more than an iPhone, and I like that. And I like more capability in open systems because I'm a developer. But in the end, the iPhone still, I always come back to that. That's really the better favored platform. I can't seem to break from it, and I try.
So you say history may not repeat. I say history repeat, but it will take a longer time. Okay, we better on it.